Welcome to Risk Roundup. Emerging technologies are fundamentally transforming the human ecosystem. The changes and challenges of the ongoing technology transformation are so profound that, from the perspective of the need for human skills, learning, and growth, there has never been a time of greater promise or potential peril. As a result, the need for technology driven coaching and communication is becoming very essential. The communication between a man and machine is evolving rapidly. There are strong indicators that in the coming years, AI, that means artificial intelligence, will move past the technical hurdles and play a meaningful role in human progress and development. This is largely due to advances in conversational AI and will undoubtedly have huge implications in the way we do coaching, training, and communication in the coming years. The emerging AI powered conversation interface is on its way to completely redefine in how coaching is going to be done. To discuss AI driven virtual coach further, I'm delighted to welcome Nikita Lukianets to this round. Nikita is the founder and chief technology officer of Pocket Confidant AI, and he's based in Ukraine. Welcome, Nikita. We are honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
Wonderful, Nikita. So, from your assessment, from where you see the developments happening, what technology trends do you see that will define the future of coaching?
Well, first of all, if we talk about coaching, I guess before jumping into a technology trend, we have to bring some definitions. And in our team and with our board of advisors, we're looking at coaching as a broad field, and we draw a boundary between mentorship and coaching. In this regard, for us, mentorship is the field where the individual is being helped and supported with a subject matter expertise. Meaning, for example, if you're a professional financial advisor and if you're mentoring someone on how to do finances, you would be a mentor, but not a coach. On the other side, the coach would be someone who does not necessarily have a subject matter expertise, but is able to give someone a way to find solutions and to find answers by him or by herself, by
I,
providing motivation, by asking the right questions, not necessarily subject matter oriented, so that the individual or an organization would be able to discover, find out, and excel uh, the goal towards the goal, or overcome the problem that they're facing. So
that, yes, go ahead, please.
so I guess when we talk about uh, technology for coaching, first of all, we'll have to look at what's happening in technology landscape in the world in general today. Uh, what we are seeing is that more and more companies tend to integrate already developed technologies into their portfolio so that they will support their innovation strategies. Second, we see more and more uh, that monotonous human skills are becoming augmented and substituted uh, by those made by machines. And on the third side, what we see is that the way machines and humans interact today has been has been a very simplistic way. We for more than 50 years we've been using screens and keyboards to talk to a computer. This hasn't changed much up until today, but spanning from those fields where reactions and responses have to be rapid, mostly from military, we see that we start to augment humans with those physical systems that can touch not only our visual inputs but also our auditory input, our sensory proprioceptory inputs. So those kinds of senses that we normally use as humans, not only visual. And This is very important because when we talk about coaching, and coaching has been a human to human area for thousands of years. We remember Socrates, who has been one of the well one of the best and most well-known coaches, who has used questions to help his students find answers and to excel in their studies and learning about the nature of human and nature of surrounding. It has been the interaction where emotions were involved, where understanding of gestures was involved, where humans were sharing while walking. So there was always the environment and surrounding. There was always the context that was transmitted. And when now we want to understand how technology is impacting it, we have to look at how technology has been moving forward so that it can transmit more context to the individual, so that individual can perceive perceive those things uh, that they were naturally perceiving through their human senses, but also how we can make conversations more natural. Conversational technology is not new as well. We started our interactions with computers by so-called command line interface, where we used to type commands. And these commands were pretty well defined because computers were able only to do things that were programmed to do. The next step, or the next evolution of computers, or of interfaces in that regard, was the visual or graphic user interface. And now we transition to QE, CUI, or conversational user interface, where computer can guess with a high degree of probability whether a human means one or another thing, whether human has an intent, and then computer can use this intent to validate what user is asking computer to do. Uh, and here we and here today we are working on improving, on one side, improving how computers can better understand what human means, and then on another side of how can computer better react on what human means, and how can computer provide with the necessary resource. And here I'm not talking only about coaching, but of the variety and family of applications that use conversational type of interaction.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, thank you for giving that understanding and differentiating between mentoring and coaching, because it's very important that we understand that these virtual coaches, they are not experts in the subject matter area, like you said, but it can help you by guiding you where to look for answers, and how to do it. It gives us an ability to look for the answers in the right place. It will help students, because it will guide them to look, where to look for the material, because which areas, especially on the web, where to scan. Or even if, let's say, someone is a loner, introvert, private person who is not very comfortable in social surroundings, then it would help them, guide them into how to start a conversation, what to talk, what topics to talk about, and things like that. So it will play a huge role, and it will probably help also the mental health industry significantly, because a lot of people are very lonely, young people also, of all age groups. So to have someone to talk to, who can guide you, in surroundings, like when you are going, it will be very, very useful. But the other point that you made about the intent, that is very, very big development, because as we see the mind, technologies, that when you are driving a car, or when you are trying to not drive it yourself, but autonomous car, and you just give a command using your mind that take a left turn or take a right turn. These kind of, because now AI is becoming so intelligent that it understands the intent, so it just it can get the signal from the brain waves that you are giving a command to take a left turn or right turn, and it picks up the intent, and it just follows the command. So there is a lot that can be done because now AI is intelligent enough to understand what the intent of the human user is. And in future, probably machine user, and there is a lot that will be able to done. So great advances are happening, and especially it's very exciting for the coaching industry, because it's not only the students, but individuals, and also the at the work environment there is a lot that can be done by the virtual coaches. So what is the future that you see as we move forward with this automated virtual coach that can provide great value for each industries, and for individuals of each age group?
With the partners of mine who are certified coaches, and also with our advisory board, who who's consistent who consists which consists of from the clinical psychologists, learning specialists. We're working on how to make this technology used and discovered by users even more. So what is possible with the machine that has not been possible before with human to human interaction is that machine can have an indefinite memory, meaning that our uh, technology and technology in general could learn from one single user during the lifespan of the conversation, or to learn from the myriads of interactions. So, for example, we can ask the question, "What would you like to talk about today?" and look for an answer from what is the average answer to this question. We can understand how users are responding, and then we can track the arc of the conversation, so how the conversation is developing, and try to understand and predict whether the user is going to leave the conversation, or what kind of outcomes this conversation is going to give is going to get to from the first set of interactions. So here, like human gets the experience, AI may get an experience as well by looking at the series of the interactions from the not only from one users but from a multiple users. While a single coach can technically talk to maybe 30 to 50 uh, human clients during the year in a very intense workload, machine can talk to hundred thousands or even millions. And what this gives us a huge opportunity for learning and giving not only uh, a qualitative but also a quantitative uh, evidence whether the coaching works, which kind of results coaching better supports, and which kind of situations coaching is not able to be, or is not necessarily a good tool to be used, because there we have to be also aware of the placebo effect that many coaches has been utilizing, not because not because they have wrong intentions, but just because of the nature of a human relationship. We don't want to put anyone in a bad position and a bad situation, and we would, because we had this useful relationship, because we went it out, because we talked. We may feel that the situation has resolved, but the nature of the situation is maybe very complex, and therefore we would not know whether it's because of the structure and protocol of the conversation that we got to the good result, or it's just because of the placebo effect. So here with technology, we have a real possibility, and here I would like to invite researchers to get in contact with us, because we are collecting this data and we would like to collaborate with them by by doing an in-depth research and understanding in which cases uh, coaching is useful and which cases the coaching uh, is effective and how effective it is compared to other methods of learning and development. Where we use it, where we should use it, what types of questions are the best and the most effective questions. How to relate this data, how to relate conversational data to neuroscientific data, and to understand how the physiology is changed through the conversation, whether we have the physiological reaction during the conversation or not, whether we have uh, the stress, the effect of stress during the conversation reflected on our physiology or not. These are all open questions, and they're available on pocketconfident.com/research for review. And I would be really open to get in contact with academic researchers to discuss these questions and to set up a research programs and design experiments.
Great, great. So
Really,
you made a
yeah.
point that you use certified uh, these coaches. What does that mean?
So our board of directors are certified coaches. So the way the machine is behaving is validated by the certified coach. But there is no contact between human and human in the way our machine works. So our machine directly talks to humans. So it's a fully automated system that talks to the coachees, to the users.
Got it. So you mean the certified meaning they are trained and they are certified by.
They're trained and they're certified either by International Coach Federation or other renowned coaching certification bodies that that do that did the training, and that they worked as a professional coaches. So
Got
this
it.
is
So the point that you made, that you would like to invite academicians, from different education institutes
of course
to coach certain, or to investigate or research certain problems.
to contribute to the research and to understand, to ask questions with us together on how, in which conditions coaching is effective, what are the best protocols. Because what we're doing, we're collecting the data from the interactions between machines and users, and therefore we would be able to then fully depersonalize this data, and with the permission of the users who have conducted the coaching conversation, do the research based on data. We take privacy and ethics very seriously here. No one reads the conversation, and even our technical team don't have a direct access to the private data. So even I don't know who has conducted which conversations. If I want to look at the conversation, I would only know the details about the conversation, but I have no idea about the personality of the user.
Right. No, no, I think it's very interesting, and I think where I would like to see this moving is every individual should have their own personal coach right from the childhood, and it grows with the individual, and that coach you know interacts on behalf of that individual with all these different in BC, like Alexa, Amazon's Alexa and Siri and all that, it interacts with them. So what would happen is, if that virtual coach has been with that individual for the entire, life, then it has, an ability to understand the individual and coach it, because it understands the individual. It has been with it from the beginning. And then it interacts on behalf of the individual. It interacts with all these other, interfaces and other, chatbots and, all the different coaches and mentors and everything that is going to be out there AI based. So what would happen is, at the goal here is to have the data that is being collected stay with the individual, because in the coming years what we are going to see is that as the AI starts taking more jobs, and the revenue sources, the income, the jobs, are going to go away. So every individual will look for other, income sources. So this, to have an ability to save the data with that individual, and then the individual has a choice to give that data, to lease it, or sell it to any platform, or whoever is looking for, at its own terms. So reason I'm thinking about this, to keep it, the data, with the individual, is so that they all will have another revenue source, a way to make money, because we will have to figure out how individuals are going to support themselves when the job starts going away. So do you see something like that, in your vision, as you develop these, coaches, and as you develop different, models? Because we have to think, strategically about what challenges are going to emerge, and how we can help every individual across nations, because we will have to come up with different answers.
Thank you. Uh, Indeed, what you're saying may be true, and what we see is that more and more the automation is coming into the workplace. However, in our vision, we're not planning to sell users' data to anyone, or to transmit users' data to a third party without their permissions, or even do business on the user. What we want to do business on the quality of the coaching service, where the users would benefit not necessarily from selling of their personal data, but from the skills that they will develop and obtain by working with the virtual coach.
Correct.
What we see today is that this skill building support is one of the biggest goals, and also one of the biggest goals outlined by both Davos Economic Forum and United Nations, that critical skills, critical thinking, creative thinking is going to be one of the most demanded, one of those most demanded skills. These are the soft skills. These are the skills that could be transferred from one subject matter expertise, from one domain to another domain. And therefore, it means that building these skills would not necessarily depend on the content, but on the way people think.
Yes.
So how can we be those supporters to people in developing those skills? How can we give them questions that will promote them, will guide them in their thinking, and where through the interaction people would learn better how to think in a more effective way, and
Yes.
how to and how to also manage their emotions and manage stress. We're not trying to avoid stress. For example, if we talk about the mental health issues, we're trying to give tool for people to manage it, because stress is not avoidable. It's going to follow us. It's going to be with us throughout our career, throughout us when we are in the organization, or we are with our families. So I think here what's interesting and important is how technology is moving from giving human coaches the access to provide their services to individuals. So what happens today is that human coaches can coach people through distance.
Yes.
And they have been doing so. The next stage of the development of technology is how to give people choice of what coach to work with. So what we find in the market is that the Uberization of coaching is happening. So we have systems that match individuals with individuals, and therefore coachees can get the coach that will satisfy their needs. And the next leap in technologies, what technology is bringing, is they're bringing the autonomous systems in the market, where machines can give support to humans when humans are not available. If we bring here the analogy from the transportation industry, where Uberization is matching humans with drivers, automation means that we're getting the autonomous vehicles, we're getting the self-driving cars. And in coaching, the same situations happening. We're seeing more and more fully autonomous solutions that are appearing on the market. Uh, the way they work are different. So some are focusing on content, so they are giving more mentorship style exercises or a single choice. They're providing a single choice scenarios. Well, we are not focusing on any content, but we're basing the conversation on context and on how people express their thoughts and feelings. So we use structures of the language and psycholinguistics to identify the mental state of the user, and then guide people from one mental state to another to help them be more effective, but depending on the use case. So, for example, if the user would like to formulate a goal, this is one use case. Or if the user wants to prepare for a meeting, that's another use case. But um, the real coach wouldn't necessarily care if the meeting is about a conference on quantum physics, or the meeting is about managerial practices. Coach would rather ask questions about the goals of the meetings and the motivation of the meetings and what would we like to get from the meetings. And these are those scenarios which could be uh, which could be automated to a certain extent. And again, we're not trying to substitute human. We don't believe in substitution. We believe in augmentation. We believe that a machine can be there and do a certain function for us, to be a tool.
Great. That would be amazing for virtual coach to have that kind of ability to prepare you mentally. So you see a lot of human-like emotions to be embedded into the virtual coaches for them to be able to understand what humans may go through before a meeting, like you were just saying, or before any important task, so that they can prepare them, build confidence. So you are. I, do you see a need for making them like humans so that they can relate to human challenges, confidence building and those kind of challenges?
I can give two comments on this regard. The anthropomorphization of machine intelligence is our human natural trait. So
Mm.
it's us humans trying to give human features and human traits to machine. It's not the machine by itself that is trying to be like humans. So uh, users are expecting machines to act like humans, but it doesn't mean that machines have to. Machines will act uh, in the way we program them, and they will have control over what we give them control of. So if we give them the ability to recognize human emotions, we did this 2 years ago. We were working with the voice recognition technology, and we did proof of concept, with which we won the nomination, and we went to the global finals in Microsoft Imagine Cup competition, being a global finalist there. What we did, we used human to machine conversations where humans talked vocally with the machines and machine responded vocally. And we were able to not only transcribe voice into text, that is a pretty well-known task and is widely known and done today by our smartphones, but also to recognize five most basic emotions from the intonations of the voice. And this was all. This was on the beginning, and we didn't continue going towards that direction. But you can you can imagine that uh, that's these features, such as having additional information from what kind of emotional background the person is having while talking to a machine. If the user says yes with energy or the user says yes without energy, how can we treat this response, and what kind of questions or what kind of resources can we provide in response to such answers? So this opens us this opens opportunities to machines to interact in a more precise way. So to give a more precise responses to the input that the user provides. Uh, so here I talked about basic three basic technological stages: humans talking with each other, machine providing an intermediary matching function between human coaches and human clients, and machine being a virtual coach to a real human. And there is a fourth dimension on which we're working today, and this is how can we become a part of every kind of learning environment, such as a learning management systems, where conversation may happen. So, for example, students learning Coursera, so learning at Coursera or other massive online courses. So how can we be a support to integrate it in such environments, so that the user that doesn't cope or the user that has an answer and needs not necessarily an information, but a ping or a deblocking action. So how can we give user this missing question that can help him to overcome the obstacles and think differently about the same situation he's had?
Yes, yes, I see your point there.
This is more machine to machine interaction, and how how coaching technology could integrate into other technology through API, through application programming interface, and then uh, help other technology to become better or to ask user questions if needed, without user even going to downloading an app. So being seamlessly integrated into other.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I'm thinking that when I mean, there are a lot of advances happening in also brain to brain interface. We are right now talking about human to, computer interface, brain to computer, but there is also a lot of, brain to brain interface development happening. And that time when, to have these kind of coaches, virtual coaches that can also be a mediator between if there are some situations where virtual coach is not able to answer all the questions or not able to guide the human individual in the way, and there is some complex scenario, then it can also connect directly with the human expert. So there are a lot of possibilities where, if it's because it will take some time before all the virtual coaches will be trained like an expert. So in the meantime, we can also create that kind of interface that can involve the real, human expert to, transition through that. But
Yeah, I would I would agree with you on the stance that yes, while machine is not uh, in the cases where machine is not capable uh, in answering with the high precision or a high quality answers to the human response, we may look human, professional in the loop, so that the human professional can answer and give a qualified help. I think this is a correct way of handling it, and also of identifying those cases where machines are incapable or machines are short uh, in giving the right answers.
sure.
However, I would not suggest us to speculate on the brain-to-brain interfaces or brain-computer interfaces here, because this is an off-topic, rather an off-topic question, and we still don't know what the mind is and what the
Yes.
thought is and what is the physical representation of it.
a little bit far. I mean, there's still a lot
when
of.
we're looking at when we're talking about the neuroscientific aspect of it, we have to really understand what uh, parts of our brain are taking part in the in the cognitive process and
Yes.
how it's reflected. And our measurement tools today are very, very limited in uh, filtering out the noise from the real signals. So we have hard times in the real life conditions doing a clean experiments.
Yes, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done to be able to reach that point. But talking about your platform that you are developing, is it an open platform, or because you are so focused on the quality and skill set, it looks like it may not be an open platform, right?
So on what what we are doing. So we have uh, we have a chat interface today that allows every single user uh, to work to work and talk with the machine. We are in the early stage right now, so we are focusing mostly on bringing this to organizations because organizations give us a way more narrow scenarios in which we can test and understand what is effective and what is not. So what we can understand in test in use cases with organizations, uh, we focus on the English speaking markets and environments right now. Mostly it's United States, Australia, and United Kingdom, where coaching is already well known as a concept, so it is demanded. But the problem that is not solved yet is how to scale coaching to the entire organization. We had a problem of only a C-level management and top-level management being coached. With $15 billion market today in coaching, we only have 4% of employees covered by coaching efforts in the Fortune 1000. What does that mean? It means that 96% of employees are not served, and this is the main workforce. And these are those people who are constantly under stress, constantly trying to be more productive, but they don't have sufficient tools to do this. And our dream is to give every single individual, not only inside the organization, yes, we start with the organizations now, but give every single individual the way to excel and the way to build his own thinking and feeling capacities through this interaction with the machine.
Oh, that would be amazing. I agree with you on that. So, do you see that your virtual coach that you are developing that will require a new hardware that can cope with the interactions and the demand, data demand, and all, or it's all going to be in the cloud?
So when we talk about, so there are different types of computations that could be done. And some could be done in the cloud, and some could be done locally on the user side. So, for example, uh, when we talk about the bot generating answers or generating questions and sending them to users, yes, we see this happening in the cloud. But when we talk about the recognition of emotions or transforming voice into text, this could be done locally. If we take uh, if we take modern um, natural language processing libraries exist, they are compatible and available for mobile devices. So it means that they could be coded and embedded into today applications, and then this application could make a part of computing locally, and then only send necessary information to the cloud, so that on the cloud we can generate not only the list of best possible questions, but find the best targeted one to this complete scenario, to this complete user profile, to this concrete set of emotions if we also transfer the emotion recognition from the local device. So I so I look at this as a more hybrid solution rather than A or B, rather than local versus cloud based solution.
Understood. Understood. So now, when you have these coaches, interact with humans, there is also going to be a, need for language. I mean, irrespective of whether it speaks English, or because each individual will have different language that they converse with. I mean, it could be English, Spanish, or Mandarin, or Hindi, or any kind of language. So how, I mean, there are so many different languages in the world. I mean, I think it's about 6,000 plus languages, right? In especially the human language, and it's still evolving. So how do you see your virtual coach doing the conversation, or coaching, and have fluency in all these 600 plus languages, 600 or
So
6,000 plus,
so there is an interesting aspect of the language, and the most interesting aspect of the language is the variability of the language. So it's not only in how different people express their thoughts, but also in how one individual, one human being can express one single thought using different expressions and different words in one single language. So that the technical problems are even broader and deeper than switching from one language to another, but us also navigating within one single language. So one of the research experiments that we have been doing with the University of Nice is to figure out how people are using the symbolic language to express their thoughts. And one example of the symbolic language is Chinese or Japanese, but what we see today is happening with languages like English, that teenagers more and more use smileys and emojis to express their thoughts. And the sentence could look like 5 or 6 emojis starting with a heart, and then thumbs up, and then victory, and then something else. And this would constitute a whole sentence. So how can we understand whether a bot using the emojis or not is going to engage people even more into the conversation, or engage less? What is the right amount of emojis? These are open questions today, and these open questions are subject to the evolution of our day-to-day language, and is not only related to virtual coach. This is if we talk this if we this is are the questions if we talk about the complexity of the language by itself. When we
Yes.
talk switching to different languages, from English to Spanish, or from English to Mandarin, or different dialects of Chinese language, today the technology that we are using is capable of working with 90 different languages. We just focus on one, so 90. Uh, Interestingly, for a machine to understand human and to transcribe the semantics of the language, we don't need another language. There has been an experiment, I think, done by one of the tech giants, where a machine was talking to a machine and it invented its own language. So we don't. It means that uh, having the meaning communicated from one agent to another, we don't necessarily need a natural language. We may need a synthetic language. And if synthetic language can conduct the meaning, it means that we can create the interpreter of this language and translate then this intermediary language into one of those natural languages that exist. Of course, today we're not part of uh, a non-governmental or non-profit fund. However, we would like to be at some point uh, delivering this to every single language, but we would be focusing first on those languages that are most widely used.
Yes.
But
Understood.
we need to be focusing on those languages where coaching is understood as a concept,
Yes.
because coaching is not culturally appropriate or is not understood as a concept. Uh, pushing this as a tradition, or pushing this as a way to help humans may not work at all. Therefore, we would like to act like a real coaches by looking at where demand is coming. So first, the needs, or the needs to come to coach and say, "I'm here. I'm in front of you. I need help." And then with this demand, coach will start to work identifying uh, by identifying what are the areas where coaching could help, and what are the areas where coaching couldn't.
Yes, no, that makes sense. Now that this is such a exciting area, and like I agree with your approach that for now we should focus on the languages where coaching is a accepted norm, and otherwise there is no point of going towards all languages where the concept is not even alive. So it makes sense. Your approach makes sense. So now talking about your virtual coaches, how do you see it helps streamline the internal operations by mapping the customer queries to the most common response? Because it's not just that there are only specific questions that would be asked by customers. It could be any question, and the coach will also ask questions to get the user think in a different way. So how do you see these streamlining internal operations?
I guess I do not completely understand your question. Maybe you can make an example so that I can relate.
Sure. So, I mean, it's the coaches are they are not like in the beginning you differentiated that they are not mentors, so they are not going to give all the answers. But at the same time, these coaches, it helps. It asks questions. It makes the users think. It's a critical thinking, right? I mean, it helps them think in a certain way, but it still has to map the all these responses. So how to when the coaches make the user think in certain way. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So when the coach is trying to make the user think in a certain way, are the coaches given guidelines in how to think, or what kind of questions to give to the user? So are those going to be only the preset questions that the coach is trained with, or is it machine learning where it's it will come up with more questions on its own, depending on the interaction that happens between the user?
I Now I think I understand your question. So, of course, when we started to build our technology, we had to come up with the limited set of questions that are suitable in one or another use case that would be the right answers. However, while we collect more and more linguistic data from the interactions with the user, we are able now to not only uh, use those questions that we have predefined and pre-built, but also use the user's answers to modify the questions, and therefore base our new questions on the structure of the input language from the user. It means that we're not necessarily guiding, we're absolutely not guiding user to think in a certain way, because asking open-ended questions uh, gives us a beauty of openness for the user, because user can think whatever he wants to think, and all the work, unlike unlike Siri or a search engine like bots that answer to the prompts of the user, our bot is asking questions. And the beauty of this is that all the work is happening not in the reality is that all the work is happening not in our machine, but all the work is happening in the brains and in the minds of the user, where the user is finding resources in themselves, where users are looking for answers by
Sure.
analyzing their options. And this is what coaching is meant to be.
Ye-
Coaching is meant to help users to generate options.
Yes.
And
Of course.
generative approach is actually helping people to overcome their difficulties and see those scenarios that were unseen before.
Yes. No, I hear you on that. Now, as far as the AI-driven virtual coaches goes, they are powered by artificial intelligence, natural language processing. So their performance is decided by not only the algorithm, but also the volume of knowledge they possess, right? So the data or content on the subject that they work with, because even to ask questions, to guide, the user to think, or in asking broad-ended question, it all requires the data. So like all other AI applications, the more data a virtual coach has, the conversational AI platform will be better, and it will be able to ask questions, more open-ended questions, and it will be able to handle more complex scenarios. So how do you see how do you see the data to be fed to this AI, the algorithm? How much data you'll be feeding that, and how you will be training? Like you just in the beginning said that you are welcoming all the academicians to come and collaborate and work on this. So what kind of data do you expect them to bring, and what kind of data do you foresee feeding your algorithms to prepare them more for more complex scenarios, and how to coach them users better?
I've heard several questions, and I'll try to answer
Yes.
all of them step by step. So first of all, I want to say that you are now opening a door to a very complex and interesting questions in the field of AI. Is how do you depend on data, and how do you use data, and how are you dependent on it? For the majority of uh, I would not say AI applications, but machine learning applications,
Yes.
data is crucial, and the amounts of data are crucial. And when it comes to a novice or unprofessional machine learning teams, they sometimes get broken just because they are not able to work effectively with the data that they collect. Interestingly, in our application we don't need a lot of data, and the reason for that is not because we are not using natural language processing, but it's because the way we use it doesn't depend on the content we collect, but depends on the context that the users are communicating to us. So we are a context-driven. We are building a context-driven machine where our machine gives responses to the user mostly based on the structure of the sentence, and there are a limited set of structures of the sentence compared to different scenarios of um, compared to different content scenarios. So, for example, I can talk about the problem with my family. I can talk about the problem with my boss. I can talk about the problem on the street. But the reality is that I am talking about the problem. I'm talking about the challenge, about the issue. This has this. It has the same structure. While the coach wouldn't really care if it's a home or an office environment. The coach would immediately understand that I'm talking about something that matters and that doesn't go well, and then ask the next question in response. So, in this regard, we're not limited by data. We are uh, able to collect the information from users from the structural perspective. Then the next question that you have asked was about why are we inviting researchers and what we're expecting from this collaboration with the researchers. So for to set up the experiment, we need to understand what the outcome of the experiment we would like to achieve. So how are we going to measure whether the conversation with the user is effective or not? So uh, we need to create a positive um, and negative outcomes, and then analyze how the conversation is going towards this positive and negative scenarios. And here we can introduce different measures, such as the length of the conversation, the duration of the conversation, how uh, many words uh, users utilize to express their thoughts. Is their vocabulary rich or poor? Are they using slang language? Are they using a certain repetitions in the way they express? Is their language full of linguistic markers that express uh, emotional background, or they're more up to the point, straight to the point, saying what happened to them? So there are multiple factors that we can analyze throughout throughout the conversation. But of course, first of all, every experiment has a goal, and if we talk about the productivity in the workplace, we have to set up uh, the right environment to measure the productivity. So we have to introduce a key performance indicator that will tell us that the productivity is going up or going down. We can introduce temporal measures, so we can start from an experiment with 1 or 2 months of coaching, where users will go through 2 or 3 interactions throughout the first 2 months, and then they will come again and do a series of interactions during the next months. And we can see how the indicator is changing, and also test whether the impact on this indicator is because users are going through a coaching conversation, or it's because they're going through another type of training. So this is also a very important control measure that should be introduced for the cleanness and precision of the experiment.
Yes, yes, I hear you on that. And providing humans with context is not a simple exercise. So for virtual coach to to be trained in the context area is going to be a very complex task. So where do you expect? I mean, what kind of technical, non-technical challenges you see the your development effort facing in the coming years?
In the coming years, of course, we are going to face the challenge, and we're already facing the challenge, is the return of the users. So how do we help users to understand that they can get help, not only first time or second time, but how to make this interaction such an interaction where the users will come again and again, and where we can seamlessly integrate uh, in their habits. But it's not very different from the from the habit of reflection. It's how to help people, how to give people a way to step back, stop for a moment, and start reflecting on what they're doing. So if we would be able to find a technological mean for that, and find those events that can help our machine to understand that it can remind about itself, or help user to remember about the machine, this is one of the challenges. Uh, is to make is to become a tool that user relate to, that they refer to. Uh, another big challenge, though, I do think we have a way to do it, is the way to solve this challenge is to work with a variety of language. It's how to make machine understand the same situations expressed in different way.
Yes. Yes, now that would be amazing to be able to solve those kind of problems. So, what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, and especially those researchers, academicians who may be interested in joining your project to advance this field further? How do you, how would you advise them to decide whether these virtual coaches, or partnering with you would be the right way to go, and how can they take decision which areas they can develop the coaching? So I mean, is there a certain guideline you can provide them?
So first of all, I will provide you the link that you may post together with the cast of this video. I guess you're going to publish it somewhere. So I'm going to provide the link where we publish open questions that we ask together with the research community. And if there is a question that resonates with what one or another research team is looking at, we would be happy to continue the conversation and to set up a pilot project to work with the organization or a large student community to to make this project successful. We would be very open to have a discussion on that and to do everything to set up the successful to set up a successful research project. So this is one aspect. The second aspect, I want everyone, both researchers and those who work in human capital management, human capital development domain, to generate this curiosity and to support this curiosity and how machines can ask this question to your leaders. How can machine help the end user? How can the line manager be supported in his day-to-day work, not by hard skill that he may get from massive online course, but 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 from a soft skill. And if you have an answer to that, come to us and we can help you to build a very, very tailored program that you can then make available not only to your organization but to the whole world.
Yes,
I,
no,
th-
yes.
I think this is the way learning and development leaders can contribute not only to their organization but also to make their organization well known and well positioned, and because it is helping and building this transitional skills
Yes.
for for everyone, not only inside their own organization.
I think you are doing really interesting and very important work, and I hope that you get all the support that you need to take this initiative for to the next step. So thank you so much, Nikita, for participating in Risk Roundup
Thank
today.
you, thank you. We are in a fundraising campaign right now for seed stage funding. So
Okay.
of course, if there is an interest, we'll be able to discuss this.
Wonderful. Now, I hope you know that you get all the support. That includes financial support also to take this initiative forward. So, we appreciate your thoughtful insight on explaining the AI driven virtual coach, and our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from the understanding you provided on the state of AI driven virtual coach, and how it works and where it could help. And even if a single individual or entity can understand the power of the AI driven virtual coach and decides to come and collaborate with you to take this initiative further, this risk roundup discussion has been of service, and we thank you for that.
Thank you, thank you.
Wonderful. So, Risk Roundup, a global initiative launched by Risk Group, is a security risk reporting for risk emerging from existing and emerging technologies, technology convergence, and transformation happening across cyberspace, aquaspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security. So, if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the risk conducts, to watch the risk conduct video or hear the risk conduct podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayshree, host of Risk Conduct, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.